Internet, this is How Good Sam, and this is a follow-up video to my one about drawing feet both anatomically and cartoon style. This one's going to be about drawing hands, both anatomically correct and as cartoons. Check it out and consider pledging to my Patreon to become a student patron, and that way not only can you consume this instructional material, but send me your homework and get constructive feedback. Ooh. Also, you'll get to read all my comics and other cool things. So check that out in the doobly-doo and enjoy this video. Realistic anatomy of the hand. The palm is actually made up of long bones like your finger bones. And then at the base, before the wrist, is Oscar, my cat. And the base of the wrist is a complex assemblage of little bones. I'm not going to get into worrying about it because you don't need to know right now for this video, but there are several there. But that shape will do for the purposes. So these arched lines that I'm drawing now mark out the spacing of where the joints fall. Notice that along with arching, the angle of the arch gets greater as you get further out. Okay, that's an important detail. And also the spacing, the difference in spacing is getting shorter the further we get away from the palm. It's about a 1/3 reduction with each digit. So including the long bones of the palm, the next set of digits, that's the first knuckle to the second knuckle, is a third shorter than the length of the palm. And then from the second knuckle to the third knuckle, that's a third shorter than the first part of the digit. And then the final tip of the finger, again, is a third shorter. So that's how you measure out the length of the fingers. And then remember that the middle finger is the longest, the index finger and the third finger over, or the second from the end of your palm, are usually close in length. They vary a little bit. On men, they tend to be pretty close to equal. With women, they can be a little bit shorter. And then the pinky finger on the outside, with women, tends to be the smallest on both hands, but they're much smaller on female hands usually than male hands. So it's usually the pinky finger and the index finger are very similar in size on some men. And then also note that the knuckle of the thumb, the first knuckle of the thumb, lines up with the knuckles along the edge of the palm, not where the thumb connects to the palm. It's an important difference. If you line up the point where the thumb connects to the palm with the other knuckles, it'll look like a finger. It's in the wrong position. And for your anatomy studies, I recommend kind of going over it and doing the musculature in red and that kind of stuff. There's stuff there, and I actually don't want to get into drawing at all right now because I want to move on to the cartoon hands. But anyway, that kind of thing. So that is an anatomical blueprint for the hand. To simplify it for constructive form, we do the following. Again, sort of like the foot, into a wedge shape. It's thinner here than it is here. So the sides, I'm going to draw it like it's transparent again. Do that. There's an extra bit here. Think room for 4 joints. Same guidelines help align and proportion the fingers. So 4 joints, and the lines here again are proportioning the length of the fingers. So those proportions, this is about a third longer than this, and again, so add 1/3 or subtract 1/3 as the finger comes out. But then if you look at your own hands, we vary. Women's hands, this side of the hand, the outside of the hand tends to be a bit smaller. Men's, it tends to be a bit larger, but other than that, you vary in mass and some of those details, but you don't change too much. That showing camera, it looks good. drawing very dark. I would actually normally recommend that you draw quite light. But what I'm going to do is use color to pull out. Oops, I forgot the thumb. Actually, I did that wrong. There we go. Of course, that would attach to, think of, again, like a cylinder or ellipse, and the forearm. Now, the figurative contour for either should be about the same. So, semi-realistic hands from memory using constructive forms or recall of skeletal structures. This is more in your kind of drawing and drafting school, but here with constructive sort of drawing, we're getting towards what you do with cartooning. So for the cartooning, simplify further. Your form's going to become more plastic, more elastic. Hyperarticulation is sometimes desirable, or at least doable for cartooning. You don't have to worry about the physics of looking like real forms, so you can have fun exaggerating. So in here you see, before I get too ahead of myself, there's the palm. That's going to be the back of the palm. What's going on there? The actual shape is a rounded version. We're no longer using hard cubes. And so, this isn't just generic ovals. The thumb has a distinctive shape for exaggerating the scoop of a thumb. The fingers, you don't have to worry about the digits so much, but you're going to want a proportionately normal, quote-unquote, scale of things if you want it to look in the more humanoid form. You don't have to end up that, mind you. This hand is just a step away from our anatomically correct ones, so cartoony but looser in form. You see this kind of cartooning or variations on for female hands. Frequently the scale is a bit smaller. People tend to point the fingers to suggest femininity. The outside finger is quite a bit smaller proportionally. As are the rest of the scales. Proportions, sorry. Right? Now, you can get even more abstract than that. So, I think we all know we've now gone to a full circle rather than for that shape for the palm. Make it a little bit wide on top. Then add a bent zucchini. And some cucumbers. This is a classic. You have a little cuff shape, like I did with the Mickey boot. 3 fingers makes it easy. You could do 4, but 3 fingers is just easier to do once you start getting really cartoony, to get it fast and still have the kind of scale that you want, which is that this outside finger is still smaller. You also see people do the mitt a lot, and then give it 1 finger. And then for sort of distance far away stuff, that's not bad. It's also not too hard to just add that, and it turns into a fairly articulated hand. So these are gestural figurative silhouettes. That's still constructive. This is getting more into the figurative silhouette, sort of like what I did around here in brown. But I'm doing it off the cuff and gestural. And, you know, great thing to do with the feet and the hands is just fill up sheets of them. Try making gestures with your hand and drawing it. So that's a gesture drawing. And I'm going to start adding figurative details. Cartoony hands, from more realistic to fairly cartoony. Same kind of principles, starting from more accurate representational structural forms to abstracted geometric ones, sort of the Marvel method, and then getting into the more organic stuff for the cartoony forms. You get looser and more fluid. Give that a try. By the way, I'm working with Prismacolor pencil crayons, which are fun for sketching with, and a cheap old pad of off-white sketching paper. It's a good combination for study practices. Don't always want to work in your best pens and ink. So give that a try.
Okay, so that's my video on making hands. Sorry for the long delay between this and the last. I'd actually had this finished for a while, but I'd lost a big chunk of the video and had to dig around, root around. I got moved to another hard drive. All to say, here it is. It's done. I'm going to work on getting some more for you soon. There will be one on the full torso. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/salgood. If you become a student patron, you can send me your homework based on stuff from my lessons, and I'll give you feedback and help you improve. And for just $2 a month, you can become a subscriber to all my comics and stuff and making things. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and pledge. Keep doodling.